World War III.
It's just not happening. I'm sorry to disappoint a lot of you that you and the homies aren't going to get drafted and go on a life-changing adventure and receive government-recognized honor and prestige for the rest of your lives. World wars aren't like movie sequels, okay? Just because you had World War I and II doesn't mean you need
World War Five.
Peter, we've been over this. There has to be a World War III and IV first.
Oh no, that's the beauty of World War Five, Lois. It's so intense, it skips over the other two.
I'm just stating what should be obvious to anyone with a good understanding of global politics.
Ever since Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was killed in early 2020, I've been seeing grown adults talk about World War III and the draft like they're just around the corner, any day now.
World War III's already started. We're using Ukraine to go to war with Russia.
Has told the Daily Star exactly what she plans to do if World War III hits.
Yes, the United States is sending troops and dropping bombs on the Middle East for like the fifth decade in a row. But the kinds of global war conflicts where the entire population of a country is involved are a thing of the past. Anyone realistically talking about World War III being right around the corner or a draft coming is trying to get your clicks and views. Now, granted, I'm no expert on international relations or diplomacy. I'm just a guy who studies history, and I can confidently tell you that World War III will never happen. And here's why. World War II ended with the invention of the nuclear bomb, and ever since then, the main players of World War II have been stocking up on nukes. Countries like Russia, the United Kingdom, France, China, the United States, meaning that a total war between these nations would result in the death of the entire planet, so it's not going to happen.
Let's go police the world.
So a hegemon is like if there's one giant bully at a playground versus a bunch of smaller bullies that sometimes get into fights with each other, or if a city was run by one giant gang instead of a bunch of smaller gangs constantly fighting each other over territory.
The official line is that World War I was caused by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which triggered a series of alliances that involved even more countries in the conflict. But Europeans had been fighting each other over land for thousands of years. The French and Indian War, which ended in 1763, was called the First World War by Winston Churchill.
And there was fighting in India between Indian Indians, the British, and the French. And the French were fighting the Prussians, and the British were fighting the Austrians. Where Europe, the continental US, the Caribbean Sea, off the coast of Africa, India, basically the world.
World War I and World War II were essentially fought to determine who would be the global hegemon, right? Germany really wanted to be the global hegemon. They saw the British Empire with all its land, the French Empire with all its land, and Africa, Latin America, Asia, and they said, hey, we deserve to be great empires too. And so they invaded their neighbors. They eventually wanted to dominate the entire earth and be the global hegemon, do what the United States is currently doing. But the mustache man, which is what I will be calling him for censorship reasons, he was not the smartest guy. He thought that racial superiority and genetics were what wins wars, but that's not what wins wars. Resources, manpower, and budgets to put gas in their tanks, right? Because Germany was running out of gas. That's what wins wars, not, the quality of your soldiers, how manly your soldiers are. Ever since the Soviet Union fell in the 90s, the United States has been the clear global hegemon, and this global dominance is most obvious when you look at America's numerous and global military bases. The United States has roughly 900 military bases scattered all over the world except South America, because they don't really need bases in South America. You just saw with Venezuela that they just fly over from the US and do whatever they want with no consequences. I remember asking one of my friends one time who he thought the global hegemon was. He said, Russia? I laughed. I'm like, Russia? Russia? You know how many military bases they have in the world? 21. 21. That's nothing. Their military is mostly a paper tiger. You can see it in Ukraine, how that war has turned into a stalemate. The purpose of a military base is essentially to make it easier for the United States to project its power anywhere on the world. Invading the Middle East would be a lot harder if we had to fly troops and supplies directly from the United States all the way to the Middle East, instead of flying out from the many military bases we have in much closer countries like Germany, Italy, Turkey. The United States has control over the earth that former empires like the British or the Mongols or the Romans could only dream of, because their empires were in the age of the horse and walking on foot. The United States Empire is in the age of satellites, the internet, supersonic jets. So while the British Empire had to wait weeks for information from one of their colonies in the other side of the world to get to them, and then take even more weeks for them to respond with troops and ships and cannons. Today, the United States can know what's happening on the other side of the world in seconds and then respond in hours. They can be anywhere on the earth within a few hours, right? That's never been heard of before in history. And the thing about the United States empire is it doesn't formally annex territory like other empires. It has this weird fixation on keeping the number of states at 50. Like 50 is some magical number that if they have 51 states, oh, it's a tyrannical empire. Or if they have 49 states, it's not a legitimate country. I don't know why it has to be 50 states. But any other country that we directly control but don't want to make a part of, officially a part of the United States, we call them territories, like Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Japan, and South Korea. And yes, Japan and South Korea are basically owned by the United States. We cover them in military bases and troops. And we literally wrote Japan's constitution. Look that up. That's a fact. The United States wrote Japan's constitution after occupying them after World War II. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Jonathan, South Korea is grateful because of those military bases. We protect them from North Korea. And the South Korean economy is prosperous and one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Yeah, well, look at their depression and
self-deletion rates.
I don't really think South Koreans are happy under U.S. occupation. If you look at, the number of people who willingly exit life. Don't you think this flag right behind me is from a show called Futurama?
I'm swelling with patriotic mucus.
Which takes place in the year 3000, where every country on Earth has merged into one country called the United States of Earth. I put it up here because that's essentially the world we live in right now. We already live in the United States of Earth. It's just not formally acknowledged yet by most people. And I blame the United Nations for giving people the false image that all countries of the earth have an equal say in how the world is run. Listening to the speeches at the UN or watching the global solidarity at the Olympics will have you thinking the global world order looks something like this. Okay? Get this image out of your head. This is what the global world order looks like. This is a lot closer to the reality 8 billion of us are experiencing. Ever since the late 1800s scramble for Africa, it was clear that European countries rule the world, right? But it wouldn't be clear which specific European country would rule the entire world, right? And that's why World Wars I and II were fought. They were fought to determine which European power would dominate the earth. Germany lost that, and France and the United Kingdom also came out of World War II damaged. And the United States, which is technically European because its ruling class, its government. Look at the Trump administration, okay? They're all European descendants, right? And there's no question, right? America's owned and run by people of European descent. So when I say World War II was fought to determine which European country would rule the earth, I'm still correct because the United States is a country where all the peoples of Europe came to melt into one identity, the white identity, right? And ever since World War II ended, the United States has been a clear global hegemon. So why would World War III happen when the United States has firm control over the earth? It's watching every country, making sure none of them get too powerful to challenge the United States. That's why the United States, through the CIA, secretly, coups and infiltrates and meddles in other countries' affairs. Also, the country is run in a way that would never challenge American global hegemony.
我有我自己的原则，我不想一辈子让人踩在脚下。你以为我是臭要饭的？
For 5,000 years, China has been mostly content to stay within its borders and keep to itself. They think highly of themselves, but unlike the Europeans who want to force their greatness on the rest of the world, the Chinese are content to stay within their realm and leave the rest of the world alone. They wanted to be left alone until Europeans started showing up. China and Japan wanted to be left alone until Europeans started showing up. And after about 1850, European technology became so much more advanced than the rest of the world that Europeans essentially forced China and Japan into globalizing and becoming a part of the global economy, right? Allowing Westerners who live in their country. China could have been the global hegemon. They were also exploring the world in the 1400s, and if someone like Zheng He had discovered the Americas instead of Christopher Columbus, we'd be living in an entirely different world. I think the main philosophical difference between the United States government and the Chinese government is that the United States government is mainly concerned with helping its elite reach newer and newer heights of opulence, whereas the Chinese government is mainly focused on helping the average person live a good life. Whereas state resources in the United States mainly go towards keeping politicians, law enforcement, the military-industrial complex and Israel living lavishly. And I think the main reason why people think China wants to take over the world and is going to invade the US one day, and we have to be afraid of China, is because mainstream media in the United States is projecting America's intentions onto China. They want you to believe that China wants to do exactly what the United States has been doing for the last 100 years, invading a different country every decade, constant coups and bombings and drone strikes. These are all things the United States has been doing, but they want us to be afraid that China will one day do it. And another reason the media likes to demonize China is that, unlike Japan and South Korea, who are essentially subservient puppet states of the United States, China is not obedient to the US. They like to do their own thing, and they're independent, right? And we see that with every country that isn't obedient to the United States and falls in line with the economic order. Well, that's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching. Dajahao de Jongwo Pongyo, and saludos a todo el pueblo latino que me está escuchando.